Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Thursday, August 19th, and as always, I'm joined by my two esteemed co-hosts, Mr. CJ Reichel and Jon, Dr. Crypto Najarian. How are you gentlemen doing on this fine Thursday morning?
Pretty well, guys. Better if, I guess the crypto market's doing better than the equity market. So I'm doing okay. How about you, CJ?
Yeah, going ahead, looking at the S&P, Dow, NASDAQ, just slightly down 0.1% today, somewhat flat. VIX up over 1.5%. So we are continuing this little mini correction for the foreseeable future in the equity market. And I think it's pretty resilient. We're starting to see some strength, or maybe not strength, but not selling off in the crypto market. We're actually kind of climbing up, surprisingly, despite the weakness in the equity market.
Yeah, it's I was up early, guys, today. I do a hit at 5:50 a.m. Eastern time with Brian Sullivan once a week. And we were talking, and at that time, the Dow was down over 250 points. NASDAQ was not a lot lower than it is right now. I think it was down about 50. It's down 33 now, half an hour into the trade. And the S&Ps were getting crushed, too. And some people were saying, oh, it's because of all the Fed speak. And I said, no, it's not. It's because, and by the way, and then I'll get to VIX real quick, but it's because when people are horrified, that ain't a good environment for them to invest. So if you have more people horrified than happy, generally speaking, the market will go down. And it certainly did in the post and in the pre. And surprisingly, it has come back. And I say surprisingly because there's nothing on the ground in Afghanistan that would make me think that people still aren't horrified. I mean, they were shooting dead bodies on television last night, and even CNN was covering it. So that's pretty horrifying. It's, of course, at least I guess you could say it's better than if they're shooting live people, that they're just shooting dead bodies, but they'd already killed the people and so forth. But I think, guys, that the VIX, we had a lot of big speculative players coming in and buying upside calls in the VIX. And the VIX last Friday, a week ago tomorrow, so in other words, 6 days ago, was 1519. Today it hit 20, almost 25, 2474. That is a 63% jump. And some were trying to say that, well, that's tied to all the Fed speakers saying that they might raise sooner than taper, because they, of course, purchase bonds, which is the tapering that they're talking about, purchasing less of those bonds. So that would be, put more bonds available out there, and perhaps without that hand under the market, holding bonds up, maybe bonds go down, which means rates go up. But the Fed speakers have been saying this for weeks, and it hasn't affected the market. But over the weekend, that affected the market, Afghanistan. So that's kind of where I am with this, guys. We came down a lot from that initial surge to 2474, like I say, early in the morning hours today. But right now, I would be surprised if we see a lot of people stepping up big time. They might be able to lift it back up as they have, whoever the they is, the plunge protection team or whomever. But I don't know that there's a lot of fresh money being committed by investors at these levels in the S&P, given what we see on TV.
Yeah, thanks for that, Doc. That's really interesting stuff, because it feels like the traditional markets are really kind of, the hand that are guiding the crypto markets currently. And I think as long as they can hold up here, today and tomorrow, we could have an exciting weekend in crypto with a lot of really positive price action. So what are you expecting, to perhaps start next week? Do you think that, maybe we'll have some buyers stepping in on Monday, or do you think this sort of, sideline approach is going to continue until we get a little bit more clarity?
Well, the Fed speakers are mainly just going to be focusing in very quickly on Jackson Hole, Monty, where the Kansas City Fed does that every year. They do that. I think it's Kansas City Fed, or is it San Francisco? I think it's Kansas City, but I forget. One of them hosts that big event out in Jackson Hole. And we won't have any real substantive economic data. I mean, we get the weekly jobs, report and so forth that we got today even, but we won't have the monthly employment data, a number of other inflationary readings we won't have until September. And we're nearly done with the earnings season. So I'm thinking that, it's more of a holding pattern unless things just continue to be really, really bad overseas. And then that'll impact investor sentiment as well as institutional investor sentiment. I mean, I said horrified is never a good thing in the stock market. And you can't help but see what's going on over there and not be horrified. So I think that affects investor sentiment as much as inflation, as much as unemployment, at least in the short term.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think George makes a great point here in the comments. All things considered, crypto has been holding up very well. When you have this much geopolitical uncertainty, also this much uncertainty in traditional markets, you don't expect crypto to necessarily rally like it has been, but it's been performing very well. So, CJ, you want to jump into the Bitcoin charts and take a look there because it's holding up as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Monty.
And by the way, while CJ's getting that one up, Monty, when you're looking around at some of these futures and things like that, which, I think we all do to some extent, many people were, of course, hoping and counting on gold to be a safe haven or something that people run to. Hasn't really done much. So Peter Schiff's kind of still getting his butt kicked there versus the cryptos. And crude oil has been just tumbling. Somebody asked me briefly, just after I did Brian's show this morning, they said, well, Jon, don't you expect instability in the Middle East to impact oil prices and drive them up? And I said, Afghanistan is not really the Middle East, it's the East. They don't have any oil. Now, the fact that there's, a different regime in charge there, I don't really know that that's enough to change, productions in Saudi or, any of the Emirates to where crude oil has to go higher right now. If this kind of action causes people to say, I might put off that trip. Not that they were planning on going to Afghanistan, but you get the idea. If they think terrorism could be on the rise and so forth, and the Delta variant is keeping people from traveling, that's the reason we're seeing crude oil down. We're not seeing a bid for crude oil because of destabilized Middle East to that investor's question.
All right, let's move on to Bitcoin then as I pull this up. So beginning here with the daily chart, yesterday we had talked about this Williams alligator level and the outer band and how we had previously found support at that level. And it looks like we're starting to find some support at a very similar level now in the existing trend. We had also talked about the possibility of going back and retesting this 42K level before a potential rise higher. Doesn't look like we have to do that. In fact, I'm actually going to introduce something today that I haven't spoke about before. But we're also getting a nice bullish hammer candle, at the bottom of a downtrend, very characteristic of a potential reversal. In this case, that would be a decline in bearish momentum and in bearish volume, hinting at, that 1 to 4 candle correction following the TD sequential sell 9 before resuming the existing trend. So that's pretty promising. And I'd also like to share the inverted view because it makes this hammer candle a little bit more distinct. especially when it's at the top of an uptrend, that's, very bearish. So it looks like we might have some bullish continuation here with Bitcoin in the short term, if this is truly to be our bottom. But that doji candle that we saw yesterday was pretty good, that we had, actual indecision on behalf of the market participants in spite of all that uncertainty that Doc had mentioned. Also, if we go over to like literally the most basic Elliott wave pattern, there's quite a few patterns to memorize, and some of the criticism of Elliott waves throughout their time is that they're highly subjective and that people draw them in the wrong place unless they are extremely obvious. And that's kind of why I haven't talked about Elliott waves very much in the past. But in this case, I think we have a very similar case of the most basic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pattern when it comes to the Elliott wave application. So if we are to overlay this concept onto the current Bitcoin trend, you get something that looks pretty similar. And it's also pretty interesting because these levels are like in perfect confluence with the Fibonacci retracements. As long as we really don't break 42K and go below the peak of this first wave, then this bullish pattern remains intact. And if we have some bullish news here in the equity market and that fear starts to subside in the next week or two, we could see an increase up to the 51K level. But that is what I'm seeing on the Bitcoin charts at the moment, and I'll pass it back to you guys.
Thanks for that, CJ.
That thing lines up perfectly against that Elliott wave, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know if you could have drawn it any better.
Yeah, those fib levels, I feel like there's a lot of people watching those. They've been holding up very well as both support and resistance. But we have this question here that I just want to quickly address. Monty, why are you bullish on the weekend? The weekend has been pretty bad for crypto and things are bearish right now. I asked because I was all in after last night's webinar. I sold some ETH for cash. So yeah, there is definitely a pattern on the weekends. I don't think it's necessarily that it's, bearish on the weekends. It's just thin order book volume, which leads to high volatility. And what you're going to see on the weekends is entirely contingent on what happens during the week. And for me, it has a lot to do with traditional equity markets as well. And like John said, they're kind of just holding steady right now. We're not seeing a lot of bearish pressure in the traditional markets or even a lot of bullish pressure. People are just kind of sitting on the sidelines. And as a result, I don't expect a lot of profit taking in crypto this weekend. There wasn't a whole lot of moves to either direction. So I think that people may actually use that, thin order book as actually a catalyst for some positive volatility. We've seen it in the past. Recently it's been mostly profit taking occurring on the weekends because of the, steady climbs we've been seeing during the week. But I think that this weekend, because of the fact that the traditional equity markets have been somewhat sideways and those, that won't really be a factor this weekend, I think we could actually see, some very positive price action, maybe not in Bitcoin, but certainly in even ETH and also some of the altcoins as well. So not all weekends are created equal, definitely. And I think this one might be kind of a unique one given what we're seeing in the traditional markets.
I will be keeping my eye on that. So thank you, Monty. I was just watching one of my trades right now. I'll throw it in early. Doge of the day, Tezos. We've talked about it before. I was just trading it now again because it looks like over the last 10 or 12 hours, I haven't been awake for all of those hours, but for some of them, and $3.30 for XTZ Tezos certainly looks like an area that we saw some accumulation. In the last hour or so, we've started to see volume pick up, not on the 24-hour chart, but just on the 1 hour. So watch this one. I think we could test back towards 390, which is where it was 3 days ago. So that'd be a nice trade, but from basically right now it's 348. It's just moved up a little bit. But I wouldn't mind taking 40 cents out of something like this. So I'm looking for, I bought this morning at 335. It's now 348. And I'm looking for it. The first resistance area, I think, is about 365. And maybe I'll take off as much as half of it there and let the rest go and see if I can get 380 or whatever for it. So that's my trade today, guys.
Very cool. Yeah, I saw that volume this morning, and no surprise that you picked one with some nice volume. So thank you for that, Doc. CJ, how about you, my friend? Any assets that you're going to be watching closely today?
Yeah, just kind of looking at the highest volume players, and some of the highest volume players that haven't done 20 or 30% in the span of just one day, because there's a lot of them out there. But one that I'm seeing is Lena. We've talked about that one as well. But also Algo, specifically Algo Rand. That one is up 190% in terms of relative trading volume. Nice bullish engulfing candle, only up 14% on the day. That may seem like a lot, but when it comes to a lot of these altcoins, we've really seen the power of what they can do in these past couple days with things like Solana and Luna, especially. Congrats to any of the audience members who have been in that trade. But Lena and Algo are going to be what I'm watching today, just because a tremendous spike in volume in both of those.
Yeah, thanks, CJ. And I'm glad you mentioned Algo. I did notice that myself as well. And I think this is what's really noteworthy as well. You know, how quickly it came to parity with this 200 period moving average here. I mean, this thing just, like you said, it got the bullish engulfing candle, and the rest was history. It just moved up to this 200 period simple moving average. And what I've been doing today, I'm kind of doing exactly what CJ just said. I'm looking for assets that maybe haven't made this move yet up to the moving average and haven't really found parity with the market yet. And one I think that is a good candidate to watch out for is Band Protocol here. We're seeing, similar to what we're seeing in Bitcoin in many ways, this sort of bearish pattern here, but now we're getting a sort of hammer candle here, the bearish volume's declining. And what's most important for me here is just this strong negative divergence we're seeing from the 200 period simple moving average. You can look across the board. A lot of assets have made parity with this moving average over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So when I see an asset that is still this far negatively diverged from this moving average, to me it's an indication that it's still very oversold relative to the rest of the market. So I'll be watching Band Protocol. Obviously the Solana ecosystem has been getting a ton of attention lately. CJ, you were talking about this one back here when it was first crossing above this moving average. And now, it may retest this moving average. But even if it does, I'm still confident that eventually we find parity up here, because that's what the rest of the market is telling us. So that's why I've chosen Band Protocol as my Doge of the day today.
Like it. And folks, throughout the day, of course, there are thousands of cryptopreneurs in the Market Rebellion crypto room with CJ, Monty, and their team, because they've got other folks that are in there helping out, answering questions, posting up charts. And the great thing about these rooms is they are like the old-fashioned chat rooms. As long as you're respectful, you can post up in that room, post up questions, post up statements about, I really see upside breakout or downside breakdown or whatever in this coin or that coin. And you can join for just $1. $1 for the first month. That still is in place. $1, you just type marketrebellion.com, just like it says at the bottom of the screen there, /try crypto. That's marketrebellion.com/try crypto, and you could join the party.
Yes, and I want to give a quick shout out to Benjamin Kim. He every day, John, he takes our doges of the day and takes a little synopsis of what we say and posts it in the community for everyone to see. So if they didn't catch the episode, they get it. And he's already done it today. I just got the alert. So he is, he's on point with that. So thank you very much, Benjamin.
Thanks,
and also,
Benjamin.
you guys, yeah, he's great. Just a reminder, if you're looking for a brokerage or looking for a new brokerage, you can check out investvoyager.com. They got 60 plus assets you can trade commission free, and they offer some of the most competitive rates in the industry, 9% on USDC and 12% on one of my favorite assets, DOT. So definitely head over there and check them out. And if you do, use code REBEL25 to get $25 free in Bitcoin when you sign up. So definitely check that out. The VGX token's on pause right now, but it's undergoing a swap. So pretty exciting stuff going on over there. Definitely take a look at investvoyager.com. But that's all we got for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. And as Alex says, hang on to your handlebars. We will see you guys again tomorrow. Take care.
See you then.